The Art of Being, Free and Easy Wandering. Teachings from the Zhuangzi. The Inner Chapters. Free and Easy Wandering. Pengzu is said to have lived for 800 years. He is considered the longest living person in humanity. He rode with the wind, floated among the clouds, and could travel 90,000 miles in a day. Many marveled at his longevity and his abilities and would have given anything to be like him. However, if you think about it, 800 years is nothing compared to the timelessness of the Tao, the natural way. And 90,000 miles is nothing measured against the limitlessness of the primordial. Small minds simply cannot know the vastness of consciousness. The little cicada that can only flutter around the leaves of low branches and the dove that can only fly to the top of a tree cannot hope to have the vision of the eagle that glides and soars in the great expanse of the sky. The small mind is like the cicada and the dove. They are all limited by small understanding. And small understanding cannot lead to great understanding. Those who are short-lived cannot understand longevity, and those who are long-lived cannot understand timelessness. Mushrooms that sprout in the morning and die at noon do not know twilight, and insects that live only in summer can never experience autumn and winter. Only when you can merge with the limitless will you understand what it means to have no boundaries. Only when you can renew yourself with the cycles of the seasons will you understand what it means not to be bound by time. It was said that Lietzi could ride the wind and float with the clouds. Many would consider these to be incredible feats. But after soaring through the air for 15 days, he had to return to Earth. Even though Lietzi could travel with the wind and the clouds, he was still dependent on them to carry him. Thus, his experience of wandering freely and easily in the void was at best sketchy. There was once a sage named Sang, whose wisdom could earn him the highest office in the state. His honor was sufficient to command the respect of a community. His virtue was enough to impress a sovereign, and his talent was spectacular enough to land him any appointment in the country. However, Sang had the same amount of pride as a little quail that knows it can fly only short distances. If the world sang his praises, Sang did not exert more effort. If the world blamed him, he did not feel dejected. Not caged within the boundaries of fame and disgrace, he never fretted when faced with obstacles. Nor did he gloat with pride when he met with success. Not constrained by notions of accomplishment and failure, he had no sense of self, merit, or fame. There was another man who lived on a mountain far to the west. His skin was soft, like unblemished snow, and his demeanor was as gentle and unassuming as a young woman's. He did not eat grains, but instead inhaled the wind and drank the dew. He would float up to the mist and clouds and wander through space beyond the four corners of the earth. Gathering and focusing the power of his spirit, he protected creatures from illness and made harvests bountiful. Even if floodwaters were to rise up to the sky, he would not drown. Even if heat were to melt metal and scorch the earth, he would not be burned. This is because his virtue embraced the 10,000 things, and he was at one with all of them. Of these four, Pengzu and Lietzi were still bound by time and space. Pengzu's long years are nothing compared to timelessness, and Lietzi's riding on the wind and clouds is nothing compared to simply merging with space. Only Sang and the mountain hermit transcended the limits of space and time, for they rode on the truth of heaven and earth and floated with the changes of the seasons. This is truly free and easy wandering. On all things being equal. Great understanding is broad, lesser understanding is picky. Great words carry strength, little words are petty and quarrelsome. When people go to sleep, their spirits get no rest. This is because during the day they are tangled up with everything they contact. Every day they use their minds to scheme. Some brag about themselves, some set traps for others, and some hide malicious intentions. Their small fears make them edgy and suspicious. Their big fears make them lose their minds. Some shoot off arguments like arrows and delight in bickering over right and wrong. Others hold on tightly to their opinions, certain they are correct. Squandering their life energy day after day, they are destined to fade and die like autumn leaves. Stuck in petty views and shallow concerns, they have abandoned that which is natural and limitless. Old and withering, their minds are near death, and nothing can restore them to life. Rapture, anger, sadness, excitement, worry, regret, rashness, stubbornness, fear, carelessness, bluntness, and pretense are noises from empty hollows, bursting out like mushrooms from the damp ground. Day and night they spring up in front of us, and we don't even know where they come from. Once we are born into the world, we hold on to life, anxious that it will end. Sometimes pushing ourselves forward, other times bowing down to hardship, we run our course in life like a wild horse galloping toward a cliff. Aren't we pathetic? Taxing our bodies and weakening our minds, we exhaust ourselves, not even knowing what we labor for. The body decays and the mental clarity disappears. There's no greater sorrow than this. Where there is birth, there will be death. Where there is death, there will be birth. Where there is acceptability, there will be unacceptability. Where there is recognition of what is right, there will be recognition of what is wrong. This is just the natural way of things. The sage rejects extremes and abides in the way, the Tao, where no opposites exist. Petty people, however, wear out their brains trying to force equality on things. The sad part is that they don't know that things are naturally equal without us forcing equality on them. The way can be said to be the great equalizer, for all things emerge from the same source, and being rooted in the source, how could they not be equal? Those who are learned believe that things do not exist and that nothing can be added to or subtracted from non-existence. Those who are intelligent think that things exist but have no boundaries. Those who are wise recognize boundaries but see no right and wrong. When right and wrong appeared, the way became obstructed, and because the way is obstructed, we have notions of completeness and incompleteness, love and hate, gain and loss. The way has never known boundaries. It's only because we started to favor this over that boundaries started to appear. Boundaries are formed by distinctions, theories, concepts, discriminations, and assumptions. When boundaries emerge, there will be contention, disagreements, arguments, and bickering. The great way cannot be named. Great clarity is never spoken. Great virtue is not forced. Great humility is not modest, and great courage does not attack. If the way is conceptualized, it is not the way. If clarity is put into discourse, it is no longer clear. If virtue has a standard, it cannot be universal. If humility is constrained by guidelines, it is no longer sincere. If courage is used to attack, it is no longer bravery. Therefore, to understand that some things cannot be fathomed is the greatest understanding. One who understands the great way, great clarity, great virtue, great humility, and great courage is called the reservoir of heaven. Pour wisdom into this reservoir, and it is never filled. Take wisdom from it, and it will not run dry. Yet this reservoir does not know where its source comes from. This oblivion is called hidden luminosity. The sage is merged with all things. This is why, when immersed in a blazing swamp, he is not burned. And when thrown into a freezing river, he is not chilled. Faced with lightning that splits the mountains and storms that toss the seas, he is not afraid. He rides the clouds and mist, walks with the sun and the moon, and wanders beyond the four corners of the earth. If even death and life have no effect on the sage, how can she be affected by gain and loss? The sage embraces the sun, the moon, and the stars, holds the universe under her arm, merges with all things, and leaves confusion behind. The petty person is afraid that the world will end if she does not impress others, but the sage sits around like a block and attains simplicity and oneness. Once Zhuangzi dreamed that he was butterfly, fluttering around aimlessly, happy and carefree, not knowing that he was Zhuangzi the man. When he woke up, he was Zhuangzi the man again. Was he Zhuangzi the man dreaming that he was a butterfly, or was he a butterfly dreaming that he was Zhuangzi the man? Was there a transformation between the two, or were they one and the same? Forget the boundaries, forget the distinctions, plunge into the limitless and make it your home. Nourishing life. Those who know the importance of nourishing life will not expend their energy going after material things. Those who don't care about life will try to get what they desire at all cost. Those who understand the meaning of nourishing life know that conceptual thinking not only has limits, but also wastes mental energy. If you use that which has limits to understand that which has no limit, you will attend to petty things and forget the big picture. Trying to grasp wisdom with concepts is no different from walking into a fire pit in front of you. Do good deeds, stay away from fame, follow the principle of moderation, and you will keep your sanity. Don't indulge in extremes, live simply, don't try to force things to go your way, and you will be around for a long time. A good cook changes knives once a year. A mediocre cook changes knives once a month. This is because expert chefs care for their knives, whereas incompetent ones hack carelessly at meat and bones. Nourishing life is like caring for a knife. If you take care of your body and do not squander your energy, you will live for a long time. When Laozi passed away, his friends went to his funeral to mourn him. Arriving at the burial site, they were surprised to find a large crowd of mourners, female and male, old and young. Laozi's passing was mourned by so many, not because he was famous or learned, but because he hid from the glamour, turned his back on the mundane, and never forgot what he was born with. He came when it was his time to come, and departed when it was the natural thing to do. If you are content to follow the natural ways, then grief and happiness or fear and hope will not find a way to enter. This is called being freed from the bonds of limits and boundaries, and being free from limits and boundaries is what is meant by nourishing life. Being in the world. You need to know what you can do before you can help others. If you aren't sure of what you can do, it is no use trying to change the world. Know what destroys virtue, and know what knowledge can degenerate into. Virtue is destroyed by fame, and knowledge can degenerate into a tool for haggling. Fame can be used to coerce, and expertise can be used to barter. Knowledge, fame, and expertise can become weapons of destruction if used in the wrong way. If you are virtuous but don't understand people's minds, if you command respect but don't understand people's hearts, you are no different from a tyrant. Tyrants force their values on others. If you force your virtues, beliefs, and standards on others, everyone will see you as a plague. It is best to hide wisdom within and allow those who want to display their cunning to argue over fine points. If you get yourself worked up over winning and losing, you'll soon find your eyes growing dim and your complexion becoming dull. Pretty soon, all you'll be able to think of is how to best others, and everything you say will become mindless excuses. You'll either become complacent or jump at every chance to please. You'll either give in to the whim of the crowd just to get support, or be constantly afraid that your self-image will become tarnished. Once you are mired in this mess, you'll just sink deeper and deeper into suffering the rest of your life. You might say, what if instead of appearing righteous and benevolent, I am serious, diligent, and humble? This is even worse. You can put on an impressive show of humility and dedication, but people are bound to see through your guise. They smell pretense and will never trust anything you say or do. Or suppose you say, I am inwardly true to myself but outwardly compliant and yielding. Being true to myself, I do not stray from virtue. Being outwardly yielding, I can accommodate everything and be a companion to the world. Surely this is the best way to live in the world. This is just as bad. If your advice is not heeded, what will you do? Will you back off? You won't be blamed, but you won't be taken seriously either. The moment you encounter obstacles, you deny they exist, using accommodation as an excuse. Then what should you do? Don't listen with the ears, listen with your mind. Better yet, listen with your spirit instead of your mind. Your ears hear sounds but do not listen. Your mind recognizes things conceptually, but that's as far as it can go. Spirit, however, has no boundaries because it embraces all things. The way gathers in stillness. When the mind does not feed itself with concepts, it abides in stillness, and spirit can take the honored place. When you enter the service of a sovereign, go and play in the court, but never be moved by fame. If your ruler listens, then sing. If he or she does not, then be silent. Don't open any gates. Better, don't even have a gate. Make oneness your home and accept that there will always be some things that cannot be avoided. Then you'll live in the world for a long time. You can cheat people, but you can't cheat the way. No doubt you've heard that realized beings can fly with wings and ride on the wind and the clouds. But do you know that it's possible to fly without wings or float without the support of clouds? You've heard of knowledge that knows, but have you heard of knowledge that does not know? Look inside the chamber where luminosity is born. Blessings gather when there is stillness that is both external and internal. If you sit like an unmoving log, but your thoughts are racing, this is not stillness. Leave knowledge and concepts outside. Orient your awareness within, listen inwardly, and communicate with that which is inborn in you. This was how the sages changed the world. In the world, there are two movers of things, fate and duty. The bond between children and parents is one of fate. If you're bound by fate, there's little you can choose. Even if you hate your parents, they're still your parents. You can't undo this relationship. The bond between a subject and a ruler is one of duty. In duty, there is honor and loyalty. If you serve a sovereign, you do so out of loyalty and love, knowing that there is no other place you want to be and no other thing you want to do. To honor your parents and to follow them anywhere is the pinnacle of filial gratitude. To serve your leader and do anything for him or her is the peak of loyalty. To serve your spirit so that it will not be injured by sadness, elation, fear, and arrogance is the epitome of nourishing life. To understand what can be done and what should be left alone is the perfection of virtue. To speak of things that please two parties or anger both parties is very difficult. To please both parties, you must exaggerate positive points. To anger both parties, you must inflate the negatives. In both cases, you have to twist the truth, and this is utterly irresponsible. Moreover, people will recognize exaggerations immediately, and consequently, you'll never earn their trust. If you can't earn their trust, you'll be in danger. Therefore, stick to established facts and stay away from exaggeration. When people play games, they often start out friendly. When the game turns into competition, people start getting angry and aggressive. If the competition continues, people resort to mean tricks. Action and speech become abusive, and friends end up punching each other. When people meet at a celebration, they start out having drinks and joking with one another. If the party continues, the drinking gets heavier, the jokes become insults, and etiquette gives way to indulgence in unsavory amusements. It's the same with politics. You start out as a sincere and dedicated public servant, but once you're in office for a while, deceit and underhandedness creep in, and sincerity is forgotten. As in all things, what started out as simple ends up monstrous at the end because we are unable to let go when it's time to leave. Words and actions are like wind and waves. They can stir up a storm at a moment's notice. Actions are swayed by gain and loss. They can enhance perceptions of gain and loss and lead to rash decisions. Anger is especially dangerous because it can muddle clear words and turn them into one-sided arguments. Do not deviate from the natural ways. And do not push for perfection. To go beyond your limit is excessive. To try for completion is dangerous. What is not complete now may be complete later, and what is seemingly complete now may be incomplete when things run their course. It's best to just let things go their way. Be concerned only with things that can nourish you and stay away from things that lead you to harm. This was how the sages lived in the world. How can you be an honest minister if you serve a non-virtuous ruler? You can't let him do what he wants because his actions will ruin the nation. You can't teach him because you might get executed. What is the best course of action? First, be on your guard. Second, follow the ruler in his actions and make sure your thoughts are in harmony with his. However, while you follow his actions, do not get sucked in by them. Although you are in harmony with his thoughts, don't get drawn in by them. If you are pulled into your leader's unethical actions, you'll be overthrown and destroyed. If you get drawn in too far by his devious thoughts, you'll be blamed and condemned. Once you have mirrored him in thought and action, you will understand him thoroughly. When he sees that you understand him, you will gain his trust. When you have his trust, you can lead him onto the path of virtue. When the world follows the way of virtue, the sage is not needed. When the world does not follow the way of virtue, the sage hides and survives. Cinnamon is a desired spice, so its tree is cut down. Lacquer has a variety of uses, so its tree is mutilated. Everyone knows how the useful can be used, but no one knows the use of the useless. The mark of virtue. For those who embody virtue, life and death are important but have no hold on them. Even if the sky falls or the earth folds up, they feel no loss. Being able to see through the illusion of the transient nature of things, they are not flustered when things change. Yet even though they are at home with change, they also understand the constancy of the way. It would be silly to try to see a reflection of yourself in turbulent water. Only still waters can give you an accurate reflection of your face. In the same manner, only stillness can reflect stillness itself. In the natural world, only evergreen trees remain the same in both summer and winter. Of all those who receive life from the source, only the sages stay above the 10,000 things. Because they live their lives according to the way, they are able to care for the lives of others. The proof that someone is at one with the way is their fearlessness. This person is not afraid to govern heaven and earth, although she understands that the body is just a temporary vessel. She is never separated from what she knows. Therefore, her thoughts are limitless and her experiences are never stagnant. Many people make excuses for their faults and shortcomings, claiming that they do not deserve to be punished. Few people, however, are able to admit their faults, and, when spared, can say that they did not deserve to be let off the hook. To know that there are some things that you simply can't deal with and be content to accept it is the mark of one who embodies virtue. Life, death, continuity, loss, failure, success, poverty, wealth, worthiness, unworthiness, slander, renown, hunger, thirst, cold, and heat are all part of the changing nature of things, or, as some would say, destiny and fate. If you are in harmony with them, you will never be their servant. If you can hold this harmony day and night and blend with the change of the seasons, creating every moment and merging with it, this is virtue, and with it comes power. Water is the most peaceful of things. Leave it alone and it will be at rest. Therefore, water can serve as a standard for all of us. It sustains all, yet shows no movement. Virtue is like water, sustaining all and being in harmony with all. Knowledge is only one branch of a large tree. Promises are no better than adhesive tape and glue. Favors are useful only if a situation needs patching up, and skill is required only when you need to peddle your expertise. The sage, therefore, has no use for knowledge, promises, favors, and skill. He does not need to scheme and plot. So why does he need a lot of knowledge? She does not need to display glamour and glitz, so why does she need to patch up and cement relationships? He is not attached to gain and loss, so why does he need to curry and give favors? She has no expertise to sell, so why does she need to market her skill? Because he has no notions of this and that, the should and should not, the correctness and incorrectness cannot get him agitated. Massive, strong, and rooted, she rests alone in the perfection of the way. Those holding virtue do not allow likes and dislikes to disturb their stillness. They let things follow their natural tendencies and do not try to push them along. The way gave them a face, heaven lent them a body. They are content with that. Many people, however, treat the spirit like an alien. They wear out their bodies, tire their minds, and dissipate their life force. Day after day they lean against trees, bemoaning their fate, slump at their desks and doze off, or lie on their beds, dreading their burdens. The way gave us each a healthy body and a sound mind. What a waste if we spend our lives sitting around like forgotten trash and jabber nonsense. The Great Teacher. Those who know the will of heaven and understand the actions of humanity are said to have attained ultimate knowledge. If you know the will of heaven, you'll be able to merge with heaven. If you understand the actions of humanity, you'll be able to use what you know to supplement what you don't know. Having these attainments should be sufficient to let you live out your life endowed by heaven. Most people will regard this achievement as the pinnacle of knowledge, but knowledge has limits. It must wait for the appropriate conditions before it can be applied. And anything that has to wait for the right circumstances to be effective is never certain. How do you know the will of heaven is truly the will of heaven and not the desires of humanity, or vice versa? Only those with wisdom can see the difference. Sages are sometimes called great teachers. This is because they do not denigrate their needs, they are not proud of their fortune, and they do not scheme and plan for success. They may make mistakes, but are not burdened by guilt. They can be successful, but they feel no need to brag about it. Never separated from the way, they can climb peaks without fearing the height, enter water without getting wet, and walk through fire without being burned. They sleep without dreams and wake without being burdened by cares. They eat without craving, their breath originates deep within the belly, and they speak without pretense. In comparison, petty people breathe from the throat, their desires are deep, and their understanding of heaven is shallow. As a result, their words come out garbled, their speech is forced, and they spit out diatribes as if they are throwing up. Sages do not understand what it means to love life and hate death. They come into the world without fanfare and leave without fussing. They come briskly without baggage and leave briskly without being encumbered. Although they do not forget where they came from, they do not think much of finding out where they will go after life. They received something good when they came into the world, and they delight in it. Upon leaving, they will hand it back without a second thought. Life and death are part of the natural way of things, just as dawn and darkness are the natural ways of heaven. There are things that we can do and things that we can't do. The way, mother of all, gave you a body, filled it with life force, eases you into old age, and gives you rest in death. What else can you ask for? Think well of your birth, your health, your aging, and your death. Birth and death, youth and old age, beginning and end. Delight in all of them. The sage is not concerned with what is and what is not. Her face is serene and her forehead is wide. She can be chilly like an autumn wind and soft and warm like a spring breeze. Her joy and anger are natural, like the cycle of the seasons. In harmony with everything around her, she lets things follow their natural course and does not interfere with inborn nature. If she calls out the army to overthrow a nation, she will still have the hearts of the people. Such is the way of the sage. Sages dwell in vastness. Their bearing is dignified, their view is lofty. They may not have everything in the world, but they are not tempted by gain and favors. They are sincere in their integrity, but are never insistent. They are vast in their outlook, but are never arrogant. Mild-mannered and always cheerful, they seem to be happy and carefree. Though unwilling to display expertise, they always help others by doing what is appropriate and necessary. Regardless of whether their actions are approved or disapproved, they do not hide behind a mask. Always relaxed, they rest in virtue. Tolerant and unassuming, they fit easily into the world. Above and alone, they are restricted by nothing. They know when to withdraw and when to engage. For them, punishment and reward are like clothing worn on appropriate occasions. Rites and rituals are simply wings that take them to the vastness of the sky. Their wisdom comes from timeliness, their virtues from what is reasonable. Because they wear reward and punishment as garments, they can shed them easily and be compassionate and forgiving. Because they fly on the wings of rites and rituals into vastness, they can get along with the world perfectly. Because they see wisdom as that which is appropriate, they never stop doing what is meant to be done. Because they see virtue as something reasonable, they are able to plant their feet firmly on the ground while walking leisurely up the hill. Yet for all this, people see them as just like any other individuals, having to work hard to get to where they are. Unbiased and free from likes and dislikes, they are simultaneously a companion of heaven and a friend of humanity. When humanity and heaven do not fight each other, sages become a natural part of society. The way is its own underlying reality. It is its own source and root. If it were handed to you, you couldn't receive it. If you tried to possess it, you would never get it. Before the cosmos was separated into heaven and earth, it was there. It gave luminosity to the spirits and deities. It gave birth to heaven and earth. Extending beyond the highest point, it cannot be labeled as lofty. Reaching down to the uttermost depths, it cannot be regarded as deep. Because it already existed before heaven and earth arrived, its age cannot be determined. It was there before the beginning of time, yet you cannot say it is ancient. Sages have no problem understanding the way. Counting to 3, they can put the world outside themselves. Counting to 7, they can put everything inside themselves. Counting to 9, they can attain the brightness of dawn. And in experiencing the dawn, they see their own aloneness. When they realize they are utterly alone, they can lay aside past and present. When they can dispense with past and present, they are able to transcend life and death. For the sage, there is nothing to send away, nothing to welcome, nothing to destroy, and nothing to complete. Fish cannot survive without water, and humanity cannot survive without being part of the way. If you dig a pond and fill it with water, fish will swim in it contentedly. If you let humanity follow the natural ways, people's lives will be peaceful and secure. When fish are in their natural environment, water, they forget they are surrounded by water. When humans are in their natural environment, the way, it does not occur to them that they are surrounded by the way. Go with the natural way of things. Don't bother to force things along. With this, you'll merge with the profound oneness of all. Worthy of being a sovereign. When a sage governs, he does not follow guidelines and principles like an amateur cook following a recipe from a cookbook. He looks within, makes sure that what he is going to do is appropriate, and determines that his thoughts and actions are not against virtue. The sage wanders in simplicity, blends with vastness, and follows the natural way of things. There is simply no room for personal views and petty concerns. It is in this way that the sage rules the world. The achievements of an enlightened ruler pervade the kingdom, but they do not appear to be her doings. Her influence reaches everywhere, but her subjects are not dependent on her. There is no promotion and no praise, there is only enjoyment. The ground she stands on cannot be fathomed. Where she dwells, there is no place for gain and loss. Do not go after fame and recognition. Don't scheme. Don't be obsessed with achievements. Don't get bogged down by projects for the sake of doing projects. Embody fully that which has no beginning and no end. Wander where there are no trails. Hold on to what heaven and earth have endowed you with, but don't think you've gotten everything. The sage uses his mind like a mirror, reflecting things as they are, judging nothing, retaining nothing, and adding nothing. In this way he wins without bringing harm to himself and others. There is a story about Lietzi before he understood what it means to be enlightened. Hearing that there was a shaman who could perform incredible feats, he went to see for himself what this man could do. Indeed, the shaman could walk through fire, hold his breath for hours, and predict and control the weather. Thoroughly impressed, Lietzi went to his teacher Huzi, claiming that he had found the ultimate realized being. Huzi made no comment, asking only if he could meet the shaman himself. Lietzi brought the shaman to see Huzi. After taking a look at Huzi, the shaman ran out to find Lietzi. "Your teacher is dying," he said. "When I saw him, he was like a sack of wet ashes, heavy, inert, and lifeless." Distressed, Lietzi reported the shaman's observations to his teacher. Huzi laughed and said, "I am not dying. I just appeared to him as the primal earth, silent and unmoving like a big lump of sod." The next day the shaman went to see Huzi again. Beckoning to Lietzi, who was waiting outside Huzi's home, the shaman said, "Today your teacher is better. He now has the breath of life and will regain his vitality soon. I believe my presence has cured him of the sickness he was afflicted with." When Lietzi reported this to his teacher, Huzi said, "Today I chose to appear to him as heaven and earth copulating. What he saw was the workings of yin and yang rising from my heels to the top of the head. Get your shaman to visit me again." The shaman paid Huzi a visit the next day. This time he observed Huzi for a long time and then left quietly. When Lietzi asked what condition his teacher was in, the shaman exclaimed, "Your teacher is shifting and changing all the time. I can't read his behavior, nor his facial features, nor his destiny. Even the positions of the stars change around him. I will see him again when he is more stable." When Huzi received this report from Lietzi, he said, "Today I became the great vastness of space, where there is no this and that, where there is only the continuous rise and fall of the original breath. Where the waters swirled, he saw an abyss. Where the waters were silent, he saw an abyss. Where the waters were running, he also saw an abyss. Everything he saw was an abyss. Get him to come again." Not believing what he had seen in his previous visits, the shaman called on Huzi again. This time, the moment the shaman stepped into the room where Huzi was sitting, he ran out in alarm. Lietzi tried to stop the shaman, to ask for an explanation, but the man had disappeared. Lietzi returned to his teacher and asked, "What happened?" Huzi replied, "I finally showed him the state of not having emerged from the source yet. I was empty of thought, feeling, perception, and bodily form. Floating, sinking, turning, wriggling, I displayed no notions of who, what, when, and how. He was so scared that he ran away." After this incident, Lietzi began to understand the teachings of Huzi. He realized that he had been fascinated by the tricks of conjurers and the casual sorcery of magicians, and that he had abandoned the way of simplicity and vastness. Lietzi went home and meditated for 3 years. When he came out of his retreat, he was a simple man. Daily he farmed his fields. He cooked for his wife, cleaned the house, and fed the pigs as if they were his guests. He got rid of the ornate, the glamorous, and the polished. Returning to uncarved plainness and simplicity, he delighted in everything but was not attracted to anything. He felt everything, but was not tethered to anything. He was immersed in the dust of the world, but these entanglements did not train him. He lived out the rest of his life in oneness and simplicity.